Welcome to La Taverna Friuli Wines, the definitive podcast on wines from Friuli, Venezia Giulia. I'm your host, Wayne Young. Hello, friends of Friuli and wine. This is Wayne Young in La Taverna. Finally, an English episode for you today, but it is a best of that's coming at you today, going back to the beginning of 2023 with an interview with Nicola Ermacora. I hope you enjoy this best of edition of La Taverna for this week. New season coming soon. Be patient. We are definitely bringing you new episodes very, very soon. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you very soon with the new season of La Taverna. Until then, I leave you with this best of episode with Nicola Ermacora. And here we are, the Tasting Academy of Colli Orientali del Friuli with Nicola Ermacora. One of the things that I actually wanted to talk about with you, Nicola, to start off is a lot of Americans and a lot of English-speaking people mispronounce the name of your winery. So let me hear it from you. You pronounce the name?
It's Ermacora.
Ermacora. See, that's not Ermacora.
Yeah, but there are also a lot of Italians that mispronounce it.
Oh, really?
So yeah. I would not be offended, or I would turn around anyways.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by and spending some time with us today, Nicola. You also brought us a bottle of Friulano and a bottle of Pignolo to taste as well. So if we get through both bottles in an hour, we're going to be leaving here in bad shape.
Or it's going to be a very funny podcast,
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
at the end. So fast forward.
Yeah, exactly. Fast forward to the drunken ending, exactly, where we're slurring our speech and talking about things that we shouldn't be talking about. Anyway, politically incorrect stuff. But anyway, this is an interesting podcast for me simply because this is the first time that I've visited a winery for the first time right before doing a podcast. So I have so many things going on in my head and so many things that I want to ask you and talk to you about. But I always want to start off with the person, right? So I want to talk about you. So tell me a little bit about you and maybe a little bit about the winery. But, Nicola, who are you?
Wow, this is it could be like the easiest question, but it's always the hardest one,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm a human being, so that's,
Good first step.
And no AI or artificial intelligence chit-chatting with you, so I'm a human being.
Right. Not a deep fake.
Exactly. I'm a guy with big dreams.
Okay, that's good.
I took in different paths for sure before ending in the winery, which was always my destination though. So it was,
Okay.
it was a long journey, but it was always my final destination and the one I wanted to be.
Okay.
I'm 31 years old. My name is Nicola, which is not typical probably for a Friuli region. It's more of a southern name, but
That's true.
my mom and my father just liked it.
I think all of my wife's relatives in Sicily are named Nicola.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's typical in Puglia.
She's
but-
Sicilian, but yeah, more or less. No, I'm joking.
But the last name, it's very, very typical. Actually, Ermacora is the saint and protector of Friuli and Udine.
Ah, that I
So
didn't
it's like,
know.
yeah, it's like saying, I don't know.
Saint Ermacora.
Yeah, Saint Ermacora. So it's like saying, the Brambilla of Friuli for people
Okay.
who know something about,
Brambilla would be
in
Milano.
Lombardia, yeah,
Lombardia,
Milano.
okay.
Yeah. So we're not many, but we're very local. And what I like most to do in my free time,
Okay.
it's strolling around like vineyards, of course, as you might expect, but it's everything that has to do somehow with wilderness and activities in the open air. I like to drive my motorcycles and do free camping with my girlfriend. I like to visit countries and, with a tent and stuff like that. So I like everything that is connected to this feeling of freedom and that kind of
Yeah,
activities.
we were talking, you just came back from Namibia.
Yeah,
You did how long did you stay there? in camp?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We camped there for 2 weeks with Elena. Elena, yeah, she's my
Is
girlfriend.
your girl? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm lucky enough that we, share similar passions. And,
Right.
yeah. So
How long have you been dating?
2 years, but it feels in a good way like it has been for a life.
Really?
Yeah, I think we just connected right from the very beginning. So 2 months after we started hanging out, not even dating, we started living together.
Wow.
Yeah, which maybe it's normal for other countries or areas, but in Italy it's not like a very common thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
living together here is kind of less.
Yeah,
common.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, we started living together right away. And even our closest friends, every time they hang out with us, they forget we actually been dating for 2 years now, not like 15.
That you haven't been together since.
Ever since
the late 70s.
It just clicked. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
How did you meet? Just real quick. I don't want to concentrate too much on your love life, but no, but you seem like
okay.
a really happy guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just lucky, I think.
Yeah. So how did you meet?
We actually met in the vineyards, which might sound weird because she doesn't do anything that it's wine related. She's actually a physiotherapist.
Okay.
So she helps people to feel better with their body, while I help people feeling better with their self and mind, eventually with good wine.
Good combo.
Exactly. She was going back and forth from Padova, where she was being a physiotherapist, also for a local, well, actually very famous rugby team there.
Okay.
But she was about to move in Friuli, so she was going back and forth every weekend. And one day we just crossed each other. We knew, here everyone knows each other.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, if you pass by there and you see me around, just stop by to say hi. And one time she was passing by Mons Clapade, where we were,
where we were just an hour or so ago.
Yeah, and we started chatting, and it just felt like we've always knew each other.
Wow.
And then from there, we just, it was a tiny push, and then there was just an avalanche of love. I don't want to be cliche
no, but that's
but
great.
I'm really happy.
That's wonderful. All right. That is a really feel good way to start off a wine podcast. Talk about togetherness and love and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's great. It's a good combination. She, especially if you're going to be like camping, hiking, and motorcycling, someone's going to have to fix your back.
Yeah, she does. My life definitely improved a lot. I don't know.
Really?
If her improved with all the wine I'm bringing home, I like to think so.
But, I hope so, yeah.
But mine definitely improved. I don't have a bad pain, like back pain or stuff like that anymore.
That's great. That's great. So let's tell you. So you said you always knew that wine was your thing.
Yes, I always knew, to be very frank, I always knew that something that has to do with nature and something that has some philosophy in it. Because, in wine, there's lots of philosophy in a good sense, not bullshit. That's another thing. But philosophy, it's a good thing. But to be honest, at the very beginning, it felt a bit too tight to me, to be honest, because my family, they're fantastic. They're giving me so many opportunities to study and to do so many different things. But they had one rule when I was young, that you don't go away with your friends if everyone is working at the winery. If you don't want to help, it's fine, right? If you want to, play outside or do whatever, it's fine. But since we have people working here with us and helping us to, build something, it's not respectful towards them to, just play. So I always hated this thing, right? Because my friends were going to the river to play and so on and so forth. I don't want to sound like I've had this horrible childhood, but sometimes I had to say no more times than the ones I wanted.
Okay.
So I always felt like, why can't my family just do something else for a living,
Okay.
But then, on the contrary, I really love the environment and the fact that we live surrounded by vineyards and nature and bushes, as you have seen earlier today. But there was one sliding door, right? That's how you call it.
Okay.
So I knew I belonged to this place and to nature, in a sense, to give it an extra meaning. But I spent 1 year in the Arctic Circle when I was 17. So I did a year abroad.
Okay.
To study English and to grow as a person, I would
Okay.
say. So my last year of high school.
In the
And
Arctic Circle.
yeah, it was, the
like
city is called Yellowknife, which
Okay.
was in Canada. Let's say
Okay.
if you draw a line middle of Canada, a vertical line, and you draw a line middle of Alaska, where they meet, it's Yellowknife.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a very, very tiny little village. The one that you see on Discovery Channel, where trucks drive on the ice roads.
Okay.
And there are, they actually have shot 2 series. One is called Ice Road Trackers, and one was like Bush Pilots or something like
in
that.
Yellowknife?
In Yellowknife, yeah. It's so
Okay.
extreme. It's stuff that you see in Discovery Channel.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Why the hell did you pick that place?
Well, I didn't really pick Yellowknife,
You
but it
got-
was the best.
You got stuck there.
But it was the best, fortuna. Yeah,
Okay.
I got, because I wanted to go. I really love downhill skiing. Okay,
Okay.
and I wasn't a very clever person, to be very frank, because I thought that you could downhill ski anywhere in Canada. While Canada is mostly flat, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Oops.
oops. I had this dream about going to Canada where I can do downhill ski every day. Then I got shortlisted in this like group for Intercultura, but I was the first one on hold. Is that correct in
Like
English?
a standby?
Yeah, standby.
Okay.
So there were like 25 spots, and I was number 26.
Okay.
Okay. So then I started to look for, I wanted to learn English and to leave to see something else and so on and so forth. So I started to apply for a scholarship at Sunshine Beach High School in Queensland, Australia.
Uh-huh.
I got accepted.
Okay.
And then once I got accepted, I got this letter from Canada that said, hey, we have one more,
Somebody dropped out.
Yeah, and
Lucky
I'm like,
you.
I'm like, yes, it's my dream. I can downhill ski. I'm going to drop this school where you mostly do surf every day
Uh-huh.
to go downhill ski. And then I ended up in the Arctic Circle. So it was really like super random.
Your English would have been different too.
For sure.
Yeah. You would have been all about Barbies and
probably.
right, something like that.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I say, hey, most of the time.
There
And
you
I'm
go.
like, hey, buddy, or, dude, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And so I ended up there, but it was to reconnect to your first question. So it was a sliding door, because when I was there, I missed so much. Everything, not in a bad way, but I missed, like, I wanted to tell everyone what it was like to live on the hills of Ypres, what it was like to make wine, what it was like to just walk in the bushes without being eventually killed by some animal, or, I felt this responsibility of being, an ambassador of what my family does, what this area for Friuli does for wine, that I just missed it so much, and I realized how connected I actually was to the job of my family, that before it felt a little bit, too tight. And so that was just, I guess, just in my love story, it was like, click.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. You sort of like absence makes the heart grow fonder, we say in English, right?
Yeah.
So you go away and you're like, yeah, man, that was kind of like my place. That's like my thing.
Yeah.
Here I am. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go, and I'm gone, and I just want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a song to say, oh, you love her when you let her go.
Exactly.
In a sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting that you said like ambassador, because that's pretty much like what you do for the winery now.
Yeah.
You're very much involved in the communication. And you're very good at it, obviously.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I do. There is always this fight in everyone, I think, between what you do and what would be your dream job. So as we talked earlier, my dream would be, of course, to, spend all of my time in the vineyards and, do some pilot projects and experiments, which I do, but it's maybe 15% of my time. I guess because of English, because of whatever reasons, because I don't know. But I ended up talking a lot about our story, talking a lot about our wines, and, helping my family to just get everyone to know what we do. And now fantastic that is, you know. And,
Well, you guys do a great job.
and I mean, obviously I'm biased,
Of course.
but I like that to help everyone to know what we do in our little, you know, to make the best wine we can, make it better every year eventually, and also do something for, you know, the environment without being cliche and all this stuff. You know, I don't want to abuse some words
Okay.
that are been abused today,
Right.
like, you know, like biodiversity and so on and so forth, but you saw it yourself.
Yeah.
And yes, my role in the winery is to tell our story, help them and the family, because it's not just them, me, it's us, help us
Right.
to, yeah, to be in the world, simply,
Okay.
to exist.
Do you travel a lot for the winery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. I travel not as much as other people my age do,
Mhm.
because I love to stay here. I'm not
Okay.
gonna lie. I traveled a lot in my previous like experiences and you know, university and so on and so forth. So now I travel, but I try to travel smart. I don't travel for the sake of traveling. You know,
Okay.
there are people that just want to stay outside. You know, they get energy out of just like adding another stamp on their passport,
Right.
adding a new restaurant to their list, adding, you know, another city they have visited. But, you know, I'm more for like less things,
Okay.
but in a deeper like way, you know, to leave a city eventually,
Yeah.
or to leave a place. So, you know, I don't want to travel for this. I don't want to take planes for the sake of telling my friends, yeah, I've traveled 200 days a year. And then it's like, okay, but why?
Well,
You know?
yeah, exactly. What did you get out of
Yeah,
that?
yeah, and yeah, I think it's also more sustainable in a sense. So I try to, when I move, travel, do some fairs, try to maximize everything I can do.
Okay.
So, and also to do some incoming if possible, to get people to see. Also because, well, maybe we'll say it later, eventually in the podcast, but one thing that makes us special, I wouldn't say unique, but special, is that we make wines only with our own grapes.
Okay.
So it's a state-grown grapes only, and that's why we want to bring people in, because we actually have the vineyards to show them, which might sound normal, you know, but
It's not as
always like
normal
that.
as you
Yeah.
think. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we like to show the vineyards to people. We don't do winery tours; we do vineyard tours.
So we've stepped into this realm here. So 100% state grown grapes. So you don't buy any grapes, you don't buy any wine from anyone else. How many hectares do you have?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit, because there's a pretty complicated structure to the winery, because you have some different labels and things like that. So sort of set everything up for us. Tell us about like,
Yeah, sure.
how many hectares you have and how you sort of break that down
Okay.
into the different categories.
So we move from love to numbers.
Yeah,
Just
for the moment. We'll get back to the love. Once we have another glass of Friulano, we'll get all lovey-dovey again.
And no, well, to put it into numbers, as of today, we have 70 hectares, planted as vineyards. Then we have 30 hectares that are bushes, mostly, or just land that can be either, you know, we either give to some friends so they can, you know, use it to grow something.
Okay.
To a local farm here, and they pay us with how do you say, a big load of cow manure,
cow
for
manure.
yeah, cow manure for my grandma's orchard.
Oh, grandma has an orchard or a garden. Garden.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, orchard is more like trees and apples.
No, she's more into tomatoes and tomato sauce.
Okay.
Yeah. She's the queen there.
Towards the middle of the summer, can I come over and get some tomatoes?
Anytime.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so like we have this baratto. I think it's very cool. It's very primitivo in a sense.
Okay.
So you know, we give them land and they give us manure so that we can grow, you know, tomatoes. It's just pretty cool, I think.
So it's the way it should be.
Yeah. And then we have stable gardens. I don't know if that makes any sense in English, like with flowers and all that stuff, you know, like that we just cut the grass.
So like they would be like
prato stabile.
Prato
it's in Italian.
stabile.
Yeah, sort of
like meadows.
Yeah, exactly. And bushes, a lot.
Okay.
A lot.
Bushes, forest.
Yeah, forest
like that,
and so on and so forth. Yeah. In terms of bottles, we have 3 labels,
Okay.
basically 3 brands. Ermacora, which is our the brand for us. It's where we started from. It's the label that we've always had, and it's actually the wine that we make the most bottles out of it.
Okay.
Then we have a sort of an entry level label, but it's not really an entry level. It's more of a wine that we make for those places that want to move from tap wine to bottled wine without the burden of having a too complex of a wine. So maybe more of an easygoing wine, very approachable, lower alcohol content, and so on and so forth. And then it's a winery that we acquired in 2016, which actually you have pretty good connections with it.
Exactly.
Maybe you can tell us more about it.
Yeah,
it's a
we'll
pretty
get
cool
into
story.
that,
I was
yeah.
impressed to listen to it, which is called Fantino d'Ar, and it's a proper like winery with vineyards and so on and so forth.
Right.
So we got it in 2016, and we had the brand as well. So we wanted to continue the heritage of the winemaking, this fantastic winery on the hills of it's nearby the hills of Butrio. It's right on the corner between Butrio, Orsare, and Manzano. They're locally considered as the hills of Butrio. Yeah, so these are the 3 not lines, but the 3 wines we make. And
3 labels.
3 labels, exactly. And usually, in wineries and in any other industry, it's a bit of a pyramid where you make more wines of your entry level label, and then you have less bottles or numbers in your more premium range.
Right.
For us, we're more of a ice cream cone.
Okay.
Okay, because we started with Ermacora, which is considered to be our premium.
Right.
But that's our standard in a sense,
And that's what you make the most of.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's like an inverted pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. It's an ice cream cone.
Okay. All right.
So we make very little or less of our,
other
basic
labels.
range Bregai, and then our label and the one we communicate the most and the one where we we travel for, it's Ermacora, which is our last name. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantino d'Ar, for people who are listening, is where I made wine, not as a winemaker, but as a cantiniere for Bastianich, which rented Fantino d'Ar back in 2001, 2002. And I actually, for the first 2 vintages, actually lived upstairs. And I actually sent my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, a picture of that famous staircase. And she was like, yep, I recognize that place. So a lot of good memories.
Yeah, we're not going to ask you why that staircase was so famous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I also slept on that staircase many times, waiting for the grapes to come in. But a lot of good memories. Thanks for bringing me back there and bringing back all of those good memories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday I'll write my memoirs.
I didn't know about this part of your story. It was actually pretty cool. I felt I was unlocking something there.
Well, that was the thing too, that I did not know that you guys had acquired Fantino d'Ar. I knew that they did a lot of work there, but I didn't know that was you, because I knew that the label still existed. I knew that there was a lot of work being done, but I did not know that you had basically moved the entire production up there. I mean, the cellar is much bigger than when I worked in there. It's like 5 times bigger than when I was there. But you guys took that over, and that's your production facility now.
Yeah, for us it just made sense. We like to think of ourselves as vignaioli rather than winemakers, for the reason I told you earlier. So the fact that we only make wines with our own grapes. So we literally are vignaioli because that's what we do. Then winemaking is a consequence in a sense. And back in 2016, we had this, moment where we're thinking of expanding the winery in Ypres, so where we live. But then we stopped basically because we're like, okay, what do we want to do in life? If, you want to maybe better communicate eventually wine and our style and everything, is better to have one big winery where you have, the welcome part, then you have maybe a foresteria, or you have offices, warehouse, barrique and everything, right? Like just one place.
In the same spot. Yeah.
Which makes sense. So you do some winery tours and so on and so forth. But then that would mean to compromise on quality. Why? Because we would have to drive the grapes literally from the vineyards to this facility, right?
Okay.
Which is 6 kilometers away, which might sound very little, but think about driving a tractor in August when it's noon and it's 30 plus outside Celsius. Half an hour of that temperature really makes a difference because you destroy that little delicate aromas, or you start some fermentation that you don't want to start, or you start some stuff with bacteria that you don't want to start, and so on and so forth. So we're like, okay, our main plot now is 6 kilometers away. What do we do? Well, so remaining true to our idea of making wine with our own grapes, like, okay, yeah, the only thing we need to do is to have a winery there, to vinify the grapes in like 10 minutes.
Okay.
So that's why we decided to move all the production there. It was to remain true to our style, in a sense,
Right.
because there it's the largest plot, but it's also the plot right in the middle between our 3 plots. One is around the cellar in Iplis, which is 23 hectares.
Okay.
There we have 40 hectares, and then 7 are just behind the hill in the Butrio area. So it was the largest one and the one in the very middle.
Okay.
So it just made sense.
Yeah, so it was the perfect location.
Yeah, it was just the perfect location. It's a bit what happens in the Champagne area.
Okay.
If you think about it, there are like tiny little, I wouldn't say cellar, but more like press facilities every 200 hectares, more or less, so that you press the grapes right away. And then when the wine, when you get the must, you drive the must to the main cellar. So they're like satellites,
Gotcha.
like press facilities.
Yeah. Okay.
And in a sense, it's what happened to us as well. We needed to have this like satellite, which is our main press facility, because just like in Champagne, for us, what was very important is the preservation of the grape, to make sure that we have all that like delicate perfumes, and that little scents that are very hard to reach, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Well, but right next to Fantino d'Ar, you also have a very famous piece of land that you acquired in 2012, which is?
It's, people know it as Mons Clapade.
People known as Mons
Clapade. It's former vineyards of the Dorigo winery. And we acquired them in 2012. And yeah, that's, I guess, where everything also started, Then we acquired the nearby winery of Fantino d'Ar, and so on and so forth. But 2012 for us was, a very...
How big is that Mons Clapade vineyard?
It's 20 hectares.
So 20 plus another 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And they're like nearby.
Right next to each other.
Right next.
I mean, we
it
went
used
out
to be.
and
It used to be one winery of 40 hectares, and it's split exactly enough. So we somehow rebuilt what used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what is that, like before Dorigo?
Yeah.
It was one big 40,
yeah,
and then Dorigo took 20.
Yeah, exactly. I think they split or something like that.
See, I didn't know that either.
Yes. And it's actually something we're very proud of, to be honest, because one of the wines that we're very proud of making is Pignolo, a Mongol.
Okay.
We are among the first, we're not the first, but we're among the first wineries to, reintroduce this wine. And the Mons Clapade vineyard is one of the most historical ones, the one planted by Girolamo Dorigo. So, it's like it's a monument to Pignolo. So to be able to take care of those vineyards is like a dream.
Wow. So are they the original vines?
Yes. Yeah, they're
of
the original
Pignolo.
vines. Yeah.
So they have to be 50 years old.
Oh, no, they're not as old, because Pignolo, the very, very, very old vineyards are in Abbazia di Rosazzo, which is nearby.
Okay.
But that was one of the very first vineyards of Dorigo.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's 1990. And this might sound early, but for Pignolo's story, that's quite ancient, because Pignolo was almost, it almost disappeared, and it had this rebirth. Early rebirth, like a phoenix from the ashes in Yeah, in the late 80s. Okay, so if you have a vineyard that is dated in the 90s, you are among the very first vineyards.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's not like, we have older vineyards of Friulano, older vineyards of Pinot Bianco, for example, and other varieties. But Pignolo, if you're in the 90s, you're like prehistoric.
It's ancient.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. If correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Pignolo folded into the DOC regulations when they folded in, I think, like Tazzalenghe and Schioppettino?
Yeah, and now I don't want to say dates because then Ben is gonna kill me. So read
Ben's book.
read Ben's book. But it was in the late 80s that it
80s.
Actually got in the in the DOC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Late 80s, early 90s. So really, like, if you have a vineyard in the 90s, that's
like
time.
the beginning.
Yeah, it's the beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
Then there are some older ones that are around the Abbey where they found the first rows of Pignolo, and they replicated from them. But
right.
Yeah.
And they're very old, I believe.
Yeah, they're older. I think the oldest vineyard of Pignolo is currently managed and owned by Casasola.
I don't even know what that is.
And they are nearby the Abbey, and they were really, I think that the whole story there is super cool. It's one of those families that we have to thank for preserving Pignolo. They actually saved some of the plants. So
wow, Casasola.
Casasola.
Casasola. I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't think I've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
And they're near the Abbazia.
They're near the Abbazia.
Okay, because I know there's Ronco di Niemitz in Zamo, which are near the Abbazia, but them I've never heard of.
Yeah, they're nearby, and they were really, like, in Bank's book, you also have some pictures of the journal, Diario,
okay,
of one of their ancestors during the First World War.
Okay.
Please check everything I'm saying. but in general,
yeah.
So First World War, where it says that there are people in his vineyard of Pignolo, like soldiers from Germany, eating the grapes, and he tells them to go away, and they shoot bullets.
Wow.
Like, leave us alone. And so it's really one of those first vineyards, and they're very connected to the story of Pignolo.
Cool. So let's take a step back, because we're sort of working backwards here.
Yeah.
So we have Fantino d'Ar gotten in 2016, Monsclapade Vineyard in 2012. 12?
12, yeah.
12, yeah. Okay. Step back another thing. Well, let's talk about Ermacora in Iblis. Where does that go back to? Where did that all start? Obviously, that started with your dad.
Yeah.
Who is Dario.
Dario.
Okay.
Yeah. And my uncle is Luciano.
Okay.
And then...
And they're the founders of the winery, or does it go back even further?
Well, the first thing is that, as I said at the beginning, Ermacora is a very local name. So I think it connects us to this place for probably, as far as we can think of. And I mean, the Saint Ermacora was back in the Roman Empire, right? So it was one of the last, I don't know now the words in English, but vescovo. Of
bishops.
Of the Roman Empire. So it was one of the, last places of the Roman Empire. So our story starts in 1922. So it's 101 years ago, which is when we moved to the house where we currently live.
Oh, okay.
And we started as many wineries here around as a self-sustainment farm, We had 3 cows, the horse in common with a neighbor, a few vineyards, and some land to grow corn eventually, or whatever we grew. So our story is linked to wine since 1922.
Okay.
And the family works into wine since 1922. But it has been my grandfather, together with my father and uncle, who actually, just put it themselves completely into winemaking.
Okay.
We started making wine and bottling wine very early in the late 70s, basically, which is
that's
which
early.
is pretty good.
Yeah.
As many wineries, we had some tap wine and some bottled wine. It was very normal back in the days. And it was basically my grandfather, who we have to give the merit to believe in my father and my uncle, because, sometimes we take for granted that it's just normal that you support your child's dream and their, essence, or what they feel. But my father and my uncle, among the many activities that they were doing at the mixed farm, the one that they loved the most was the winemaking
Okay.
and, taking care of the vineyards. It was really what, got them out of bed.
Gotcha.
They didn't like, milking cows or...
Kind of like you.
Yeah, exactly. In a sense. Yeah, it makes all sense now. I never thought about this. Thank you for this little hint.
Maybe it's genetic.
Maybe it's genetic. There must be some wine in our DNA or blood.
Must be.
And so it was him who believed in their dreams, basically, and their projects, and them who were able to convince him. And also that, they just look at each other as like, why do we keep on growing corn where the land we have is just simply better for winemaking?
Okay.
Or, whatever they were growing. We're talking about 4 hectares at the very beginning. So really like
Small.
Yeah. And then that's how they started. And year after year, we get, to the milestone you said. Actually, though, since we're going in a shrimp way in this timeline, so backwards.
So yeah, we're walking backwards.
We were walking backwards like shrimps do. While we were building our new website, we were going through, some maps. I wanted to know more about our story and so on and so forth. And we actually found these maps in Udine that they were old catasto maps. So maps, like proper state, blah, blah, blah maps where, they needed to be drawn properly because then you would pay taxes based on it and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And there is a house where we live today. There are maps of 1811. There was exactly our same house.
Wow.
And on those maps, they would simply draw either, they would not write, here we have crop of corn, because every year it would change, but they will draw lines where you had vineyards.
Okay.
Or where you have olive trees. And the house where we are, they draw vineyards around it. So there were vineyards there since 1811. This is one cool thing. The other cool thing is that, and they would write the name of the family who was, taking care of or owning it or so on and so forth, or living there. So this one cool thing, that their people would make winesinks basically forever. And that the house where we are today really belongs to wine since 1811. And then there is another map from 1811, just a few kilometers away in the area of Oles, which is really nearby. It's 3 kilometers away, where there is a house, again, with olive trees and rows of vineyards. And it's written on it, Ermacora. So
the name has always been there.
Yeah, has always been there and always been linked to winemaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So we're talking about 2 principal places here. We're talking about the Hills of Butrio, and Ypres. And what I was really struck by was when we walked out of the back of the winery in Ypres, there was like this like paradise back there that I didn't know existed, because I've driven through Ypres a million times, because to get here where we are right now at the Tasting Academy from Udine, where I live, I always drive and I always see the sign Ermacora, turn right, and I know the little town,
right.
and I never turned right. So I already begged you and your father for forgiveness that this was my first time visiting you in all the years that I've been here, but it was absolutely stunning. And then you told me that you have 2 very different situations in Ypres and Butrio. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's actually, super cool. And we knew they were different, but we didn't know until, all the terrific work the Collier and Tally is doing about, mapping vineyards and getting data about microclimates and so on and so forth and soil. That actually what we felt it could be, that actually it is, and it's supported by numbers, is that the area of the Butrio Hills, as we named them, so Mons Clapade, all that area, it's the hottest, the more sunny, and warmest, and there is always a little breeze, basically. compared to all the hilly areas of Friuli. So it's considered to be the hottest part of Friuli, especially when
Okay.
you talk about the hills,
Right.
of course.
One of the reasons why it's so famous for red
For
wines.
for
and
reds,
Pignolo.
for reds, Pignolo, or for very big-bodied whites.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not a fact that it's not because we need to portare acqua al nostro mulino.
Right.
That we say that reds there are good. It's just a fact because many of the wineries that are around us, like Miani, Meroi, Petrucco, Ronchi di Manzano, they are known for making great red wines.
yeah.
And it cannot be by just pure chance that they happen to be all there. It must be because the crops are just better for
Obviously,
reds.
yeah.
So we have this extreme, great for red wines and for big-bodied whites. Warm area, the warmest area in the entire Friuli, hilly Friuli part. And then in Ypres, the whole Colli Orientali area is like a J shape.
Exactly.
And there is a big difference north of Cividale and south of Cividale in terms of microclimate.
Okay.
Or macroclimate, actually. Okay, because the micro, it's a bit different in all the different hills. But at the macro level, north of Cividale is one particular kind of climate. And then south of Cividale, there is another particular kind of climate. So south of Cividale, Ypres is one of the fresher and colder
Cooler,
areas.
yeah, okay.
Cooler areas, and so we have these two extremes.
So the hottest area
and the coolest area south of Cividale.
Okay.
And it's great because for us it's just fantastic to work with so many different things. We happen to have the two extremes within the same winery.
Okay.
So we can blend, we can vinify by parcel as we do, because we also work only with our own grapes. So it's just a consequence. And, to have these two things in just one winery is great.
Yeah.
You have the two extremes, and we have vineyards of the same variety in both.
Okay.
So we have to, harvest in different times, and, it's really...
Well, I'm sure that also helps with sort of the organization of the work.
Exactly. At least it's not all at once.
Exactly. So you have, your early Friulano that you're harvesting in Butrio because it's warmer and sunnier.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a little bit of time before the Friulano is ready in Ypres.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of an advantage, or
it is
in the organization.
Yeah. And also it's one of those advantages that is not just, at an operative level, as you said, that maybe it helps us to not be just all of a sudden bombed by
grapes
stuff to do.
Tons and
tons and stuff to do. But it's also, in terms of quality for our wines, it's fantastic because, you somehow, it's like when in finance you differentiate your portfolio, right?
Right.
So, you try to lower your risk by having some stuff that it's very risky and some stuff that it's very safe, right? What happens in our situation is that if you have very dry vintages, then you still have the vineyards from Ypres.
Okay.
That ensure that you have a reasonable crop. If you have some cooler vintages, then you have the crops from Butrio that are very, are still good crops in a sense,
ripe.
And ripe and everything. And so this helps us, we remain true to the vintage because obviously by working with our own grapes, our wines, like you will feel the vintage in our wines because we cannot, just mix other stuff.
Exactly.
To make it fresher or so on and so forth. So you feel the vintage, but somehow at least you decrease the chances that you have a very bad vintage.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're hedging your bets, basically.
Yeah, you're hedging your bets. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're drinking the Friulano now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing here that says, we have Ermacora Friulano. It doesn't say Ermacora Friulano Butrio or Friulano Ypres. So you don't differentiate between the two places. So how do you decide which, because you said you vinified parcel by parcel.
Exactly.
So, and then you make a selection of which batches go together for the Ermacora. Yeah.
So what we do is that all our vineyards, they start the same path. Okay. So they're all supposed to be vineyards that will make it to our best wines. So they're not predestinati or stuff like that.
Okay, so you don't have like second-rate vineyards.
Second-rate vineyards. They're all, pruned by hand with our, trusty people.
Wow.
Trustworthy people.
70 hectares.
Yeah, they're all
lot of
pruned
work.
by hand. Yeah, exactly. And they're all Guyot. So,
Okay.
there is not a vineyard that is just made for one line of wine. So they're all, we like to give the same chances to everyone. We're very democratic in
Right.
that.
Yeah, you gave a good example of that when we were talking in the wineries. Like if you have several children.
Kids. Yeah, exactly. You just want to give them their best education to all of them, right?
Send them all to university.
Yeah, send them all either to university, or if a kid likes soccer, you don't just push him to university because you want to, but you send him to the best soccer school. So we like to give them what we think it's best for them, right? So they can express their full potential.
Right.
So we don't have a standard recipe for all our 70 hectares. There are different recipes according to the different vineyards.
And you're looking sort of to maximize the quality there.
Exactly.
You're not sort of saying, okay, well, over here, we're going to make a little more production.
Exactly.
We're going to, don't worry too much about the quality there, because that's going to go in, linea B.
Yeah.
No, you're pushing all of these to the maximum, and then you make the selection wine by wine, not vineyard by vineyard.
Yeah, exactly. So in March, when we define which will be our Friulano, for example, we have about 15 different kinds of Friulano that we blend.
Wow. It's a big job to sort of go through all of those.
It's one of the most exciting times after harvest, which is the time for a winemaker for sure. So if we don't count the harvest, it's really the time of blending. It's, you work so much to get all that colors, all the shades, and now it's time to make the painting and make it great.
That's great. Great analogy.
Yeah, you travel around the world to find that perfect shade of ochre, and you bring the pigments back to your place, and you try to understand what's best for that vineyard, and so on and so forth. And then now you have all these shades in front of you, and then boom, you have to make the best painting ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are drinking Friulano. You also brought us a Pignolo.
Yeah.
Tell us about the different wines that you make. So you make Friulano.
Yeah.
And you make a few, which is typical for Friuli.
Which is typical.
Yeah.
At the beginning, so fun fact, at the beginning I was a bit ashamed to name and list them out.
Okay.
All of them.
You don't need to do that if you don't want to.
No. I was at the beginning, back in the first months of working with the family, because like, okay, but if you name so many, what are you really doing? What are you really good at? But then it's not true. It's actually one of the cool things, and it's part of the history of this region, because most of the wineries, I think 99% of them, started as mixed farms, right? And every family in Friuli, in their garden, had a few lines of vineyards, or had a plot with some vineyards, and they would plan what they liked the most to make wine for themselves, because it was actually like considered food in Friuli, right?
Exactly.
So, for example, you're back in the 40s or 50s, and you like Sauvignon. So the wine that you make for your family should be Sauvignon, and you plant Sauvignon.
Okay.
I like Refosco, and I plant Refosco. Okay. And then all of a sudden, all the wineries somehow expand themselves by acquisition of the nearby vineyards, okay, which were planted of different things. So all of a sudden, they find themselves with 15 different, types of wines.
I never thought of that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like you end up having so many different like vineyards. So you have two choices. You either mix them all, okay, so you make a Bianco and a Rosso.
Okay.
Or you are in a region where you have Mario Schiopetto.
Okay.
Where he leads the style of Friuli, and it's his heroes, and the person he wanted, the winemakers he liked the most, and also the style was the Austro-Hungarian style. So pure wines, single variety wines.
Exactly.
So the winery started making single variety wines.
Gotcha.
That's why even the smallest winery in Friuli has 10 different wines.
Okay.
So while at the beginning I was feeling ashamed, I'm like, oh, Nicola, you're so stupid. It's actually why we're here, and it's part of our story and why it makes us so unique, you know?
Perfect.
And yeah, so we have different wines, Friulano, Ribolla Gialla, and Malvasia. Then we have Pinot Grigio, Pinot Bianco, and Sauvignon Blanc. Then we also have Picolit, which, it's one of the noble passitos of Italy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And this is all for the whites. Then for reds, we have Refosco and Schioppettino as locals, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and then we have Pignolo.
Okay. And everything that you do is all monovarietals.
Yeah, we only have one blend.
You have one blend.
Exactly. Yeah. We have one blend. They're all monovarietals, like 100% same variety, the monovarietals. So not 85% as...
I was going to say, do you cheat a little bit? And
No.
100%. So 100% is 100%.
100% is 100%.
Mano sul fuoco.
Mano sul fuoco.
Okay.
And we have just one blend where we start from monovarietals. So it's a cuvée.
Okay.
We put in Reserva our best Merlot, best Cabernet Sauvignon, and best Refosco dal Peduncolo Rosso.
Okay.
We let it age for 36 months in French oak. And then after 36 months, we taste these oaks and we select the best ones.
Okay.
And we blend them together. So it's the best oaks of the best reds we have. So
wow.
it's a 2 levels of selection. So you have to make it 2 times to be a Riul. Yeah, so, that's the name of our wine.
Riul.
Riul, yeah.
And what does that mean?
So Riul, it's in our local language, is how you would name a water stream.
Okay.
Okay. A tiny water stream. So
like a little brook.
Ruscello, yeah.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah. And what happened is that we probably in Ermacora, we don't have lots of creativity when it comes to naming. So when we started making this wine, our best Merlot, which is the main part of our Riul, was the vineyard that faced this water stream. So it's the Merlot, the Riul Merlot, the Merlot in the Riul, the Merlot, and then it became the Riul wine.
Gotcha.
Fun fact and funny story is that actually, if you look at the maps, that water stream is actually named Riul.
No.
So it's a water stream named water stream.
Wow. So, I mean, did you know that it was called that before you called it that? Or did you just like...
It just happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so on the map, it's just called Riul.
It's called Riul. Yeah.
Wow. So it's
and then,
confirmed the name you already gave it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just as it should have been.
Exactly.
And today, that's not necessarily our best Merlot. But the name remained.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. And tell me a little bit about Pignolo, because you're a big fan of Pignolo. And I have to say, full disclosure, World Pignolo Day, Ben Little was nice enough to open a Magnum that he had gotten from you guys as a gift of the 2003 Pignolo, which I think was the first vintage. 13, sorry, not 3.
Yeah, well,
13, sorry, 2013. And this whole idea of like Pignolo Raro and these Pignolos that need 10 years. So what is Pignolo something that's always been part of the DNA of Ermacora, or?
Oh yeah,
obviously with Monsclapade, that's important, right?
Yeah, but also in the DNA of Ermacora has always been there. My father really planted few rows of vineyards, literally.
Is there a Pignolo in Ypres as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So
it just liked it. And he said like, okay, no, I want, also it was traveling to Borgogna with Girolamo. He knew Walter Filipputi by heart. So I guess he also, wanted to be up to their quality of Pignolo. They were making terrific Pignolos. It's like, I they're good friends of mine. I want to, be with them in a sense,
So if there was like Pignolo boys, your dad would be one of them.
Yeah, I like to think about that.
Walter Filipputi and Girolamo,
they are
those were like
boys.
The guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he just liked it, so he started planting it. So it's part of our DNA ever since, because of the things we said earlier. So our vineyards in Ypres are 1992. So
Okay.
those were the first years, you know.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, actually, it's also another cool thing is that we have two vineyards of Pignolo in the two different microclimates within the same winery, which is also interesting because usually, well, for listeners who don't know, but there are today just above 60 wineries who make Pignolo, but combined they make just above 70,000 bottles.
Okay.
So really,
Tiny
like, yeah,
production.
usually like wineries have really one little plot of Pignolo. But for these, reasons that we talk about, we happen to have two parts of Pignolo in the two different microclimates. So that's also a pretty cool thing to work with. And yeah, and so it was part of our DNA for sure. We, if we have this emotional attachment to Pignolo for sure,
Okay.
and we like it a lot. We think it really speaks the language of our region a lot.
That's good.
It's also definitely has a wow effect because it's the red you would not expect in a region mostly famous for white wines.
Exactly.
So, like it happens sometimes that they open bottles of Pignolo, not just ours, but in general at tastings, where you have the most famous, Barolos or Chianti Classico or, you know, the big reds, the Brunellos. And then they're like, okay, yeah, this is not definitely one of them, but must be made there,
Right.
must be something else, must be some weird technique or so on and so forth. And then boom, it's from Friuli.
That's from Friuli.
Mic drop.
Nice. Exactly. I love that mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, yeah, Pignolo for us is, yeah, it's love.
Right. It's love. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell. So let's go back a little bit. I want to take 2 steps back about you personally, because you said your real passion is outside and in the vineyard. And then while we were taking a little drive around Fantino d'Ar, you were describing some really, really interesting things that you were doing in the vineyard, especially as far as like, your grasses and all that sort of stuff.
Soil management.
Tell me a little bit about that and maybe like why or how you became so in love with that type of work. Because you said if you could do anything, it would be working outside, right?
Yeah, so I try to run away every time I can to
run outside.
Yeah, to run outside.
So tell us a little bit about this passion for working in the vineyard and what you're doing out there.
Yeah, so it makes sense again to the fact that we have the vineyards. If we didn't have the vineyards, then we would not be talking about this.
Yeah, you can't do all of these
exactly. You can't do all of this.
experiments and things like that.
In the last years, we were trying. We are just experiencing climate change like anyone else is doing. And one thing is that actually, even though, it's not been raining for a long time, like everyone thinks that there is siccità, there is no rain. But actually the amount of rain that you get in Friuli, it's a bit below average, but not by, a big part. So a thing is to make sure that when you get the rain, you can keep it. So there are two ways of keeping water when it rains. You either build little lakes.
Okay.
And
so like a reservoir.
Like a reservoir.
Where it runs off and gets collected.
Exactly. And then you have to pump it up and, water your plants and so on and so forth. Or you make sure that the soil is ready to retain as much water as possible. Okay. It's like, if you have a sponge, your kitchen sponge, if it dries under a weight, when you pour water on it, it doesn't suck the water, right? The water goes away.
Right.
Runs away.
Right.
But if the sponge is very spongy,
yes,
it keeps the water.
Okay. So it absorbs
the water.
Okay.
The idea is this one behind all the experiments that we're doing.
Okay.
So
it's like this compacting of the soil.
Exactly. We try to decompact the soil.
Okay.
Exactly. But we don't want to work the soil because we only work it in the very first years to break the superficial roots of the vineyards so that they go deep down, so they don't suffer eventually like water droughts and stuff like that. So we don't want to move the soil this would get very technical, but we don't want to move the soil. And what we try to do, now we're doing some experiments based on some writings and findings and principles of also other wineries to not cut the grass or limit the times that we cut the grass.
Okay.
Right? So that you allow the roots to develop and to keep this soil more spongy, in
Okay.
a sense. And then also what we try to do.
So is that so if you don't cut the grass, does that become a problem for like managing the vines?
Well,
or?
if you let it grow very tall and high,
Okay.
yes, you have to lay it down.
So you don't
continuously.
cut it, you lay
it down.
You sort of press it
Yeah,
down into the
you
soil.
press it.
You roll over it. with
Yeah,
something.
you disturb it in a sense,
Okay.
So it's not that, we have a forest in our vineyards.
Yes, of course.
Because, of course, you have humidity, and humidity brings a variety of problems. Exactly. So you lay it down continuously.
Okay.
By laying it down continuously, at one point, the plant tends to develop better roots because it doesn't keep on putting energy into growing.
Okay.
If you think about it.
Okay.
And then
sense.
in this way, you have a turf, literally, like a carpet. It helps you to retain evaporation.
Okay. So less water evaporates.
Also, the temperature is a bit lower.
Okay.
If you think about it, you can, in summer, when you go to the beach, when you go to Grado Orlignano, you cannot walk slowly on the sand.
Because it's
but
very hot.
At your home garden, you can walk barefoot.
Right? Because grass doesn't absorb as much heat, doesn't hold as much heat.
Exactly. So that you have a lower temperature of the soil. You have some shade because you lay it down. So underneath there is some shade. You have this, what's called in Italiano, pacciamatura. Okay.
Pacciamatura.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you put some literally green sunscreen on your.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
In a sense, it's green sunscreen. It's nature sunscreen.
And you also talked about like green manure.
Exactly. So we do some more than green manure. We do we apply seeds when we lay down the grass to bring biodiversity. So it's not a matter of manure. So if you go to our vineyards, you don't have this Instagram perfect sovescio.
Okay.
It's all like spots here and there and so on and so forth.
Some spots a little higher, some
spots are lower, some spots are growing, some others are not. Because what we do is that once a year, and for consecutive years, about 5, we seed alternative lines of the vineyard.
Okay.
So we do one yes and one no and so on and so forth. And we do the same row for about 5 years. This is like the idea. So that we bring local plants and species that maybe are not there anymore because obviously you use tractors and all those things, so species that are more fragile, they tend to be to die simply, right?
Yeah.
So to bring more biodiversity. So our point is not to have this like very tall grass that we lay down and fertilizes the soil, but it's more to have as much diversity as we can. And then again, we lay it down. And since we keep on laying it down and not cutting and like putting underneath the soil to fertilize, as green manure practices would do.
Okay.
The flower that you get from this like green manure gets to its complete cycle. So when you lay it down, it has already seeds inside, so you don't need to reseed so much.
Okay, so it sort of reproduces on its own.
Exactly. So our idea is that we don't want to, every year reseed continuously, but we want nature to just do it because he knows better.
Right, exactly.
It knows better.
And it grows where it's supposed to grow.
Exactly. So we find it in some vineyards, our senape just grows better, and probably there will be a patch of more senape. In another area, we have more vecha. And so the plants that will grow are simply the best to grow there. So we're not, imposing any other species.
And this is all for the purpose of retaining more water, protecting the soil.
So this part of green manure, no, it's more for biodiversity.
Okay.
So the more diversity you have, the more different, bioma you have in terms of types of bacteria, types of, insects, and you name them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a more diverse soil and environment, and that translates obviously in a more healthy place for plants to live
Okay.
and to thrive.
Okay.
So for sure that will turn into better, grapes, more healthy grapes, less pest control treatments eventually, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So no, the part of like green manuring in the way we do, it's more towards creating a better environment for the plant to grow.
Okay.
Okay. In a way that it's natural, in a sense, because we don't replant and we just, in a sense, throw seeds there, and if they grow, they grow.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
While the fact that we are doing pilot projects not to cut the grass in some parts, that's for, water retention and again, soil management and all that part.
Okay.
Yeah. And, Vignai d'Aduline, Somo Chiuti,
Yeah. Okay.
has been working on this stuff for a very long time. So also the tool that we are using is based on also his studies and findings.
Okay.
So yeah, it's actually like one of where he's very good at. So soil management is definitely one of his skills.
things.
Yeah. So we try to understand, how we can do better based on also some of these principles.
Cool. So you are already sort of certified as sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. Is there another step? Are you going to go to biodynamic or organic, or is that not something that you're thinking about right now?
To be honest, no.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't want to lie, or say, yeah, we're going to do, and then never going to do it,
yeah.
I mean, no one is going to question eventually what I say and come back like 5 years from now and say, oh, but
you said on Wayne's podcast
but
that all of 37 people listen to.
Exactly. So I prefer to be honest and say as of like what we are today.
Right.
And then, tell you all the things I told you about, green manuring and biodiversity management and so on and so forth, instead of just like making politician fake promises.
Gotcha.
Another thing, how we monitor the biodiversity thing is that now we have also beehives.
Okay.
And you can do analysis on the honey that you get from the beehives.
Okay.
And they are as precise as telling you from which flowers they got the nectar from.
From the honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, they go at a microscopic or whatever. They're not super expensive analysis, and they give you a full list of the scientific names of the plants you got the honey from, right?
Okay.
So we're starting this year. We already had the beehives there for 2 years.
Okay.
And we're starting this year with this thing. And then we want to see how long is the list
Okay.
of different species we get in our honey.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah. So my next question was like, what is the purpose of doing this analysis?
Yeah, because it helps us to understand how many different species, flowers do we have in our vineyards. And we can do this only because we have a single block of 60 hectares, 40 of which are vineyards and 20 of which are, as I told you,
forests,
forest and so on and so forth. So basically the numbers that you get there are really yours. It's not that it's some good neighbor who has so many different flowers,
The big flower garden.
The big flower guy there. And so we want to monitor throughout the years if we get more species and to which amount, so maybe we will see in a year from now. So we do one single honey eventually,
right?
Of all the varietals, or 2 honeys, like one of more of a spring one, one of more of a summer one, and then we cross the data basically.
Okay.
And we want to see how long is this list, and if this list improves. Okay.
So if it becomes more diverse.
So instead of having, I'm just going to say a number like random, instead of like 20 species that we get today, in 2 years from now, we get 35, for example.
And that's a good thing.
That would be a good thing for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I'm going to let you go. I mean, it's been a really interesting conversation. I want to thank you so much for spending time, not only here on the podcast, but showing me finally, after so many years, the winery and what you're doing over there. Big revelations for me about Fantino d'Ar. And I knew about Mosclapade, but I didn't know about Fantino d'Ar. And how you moved everything there. It was really nice to meet you, even though you said we had met before, but you didn't tell me who you were. We met at a tasting at Ronchidicciala, right?
Yes, correct.
So, and you were with Nicola Ermacora.
Yeah. Cool
Famous
guy.
degustatore.
And tractor driver.
Exactly. And I want to have, was it Daniele?
Yes.
From Simone di Brazzano. I have to have him on. So
pretty cool guys.
He is a cool guy. Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much. I mean, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
No, but I want to thank you because this is my first podcast ever.
Okay.
And it has been quite of an experience.
Well, you're very good at it, so it shouldn't be your last.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
And then also, it was my first podcast and in English, so it has been an interesting exercise for me. So very stimulating, and also all the talks we had before this and now are nice, intriguing. Thank you.
And a glass of wine or two doesn't hurt.
No, never.
Thank you so much. Okay, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you sometime soon.
Thank you.